Hi, my name is James Arbius. I'm here to do my presentation number one question and answer video. The first three questions will be answered with peer-reviewed research articles. So the first question was, how are you diagnosed? And I was diagnosed by an educational psychologist to have a higher IQ than average, but low processing speed and reading deficits, resulting in the basic routine of reading combined with more complex information processing, such as reasoning, to be difficult. The task of comprehending new information is very consuming. The psychologist administered the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, 4th edition, to identify my learning issues. She then administered the Woodcock-Johnson 3 test of achievement to determine how my learning issues affect my ability to learn and understand what I read. The two tests combined were used to diagnose my learning disability. To learn more about the process and tests that were used to diagnose my learning disability, you can read the following article: Agreement Among Four Models Used for Diagnosing Learning Disabilities by Briley Proctor and Francis Previtt, published in the Journal of Learning Disabilities. Second question: how would your life be impacted if you did not receive help? This is hard to know for certain, but based upon research published in the journal article, the relationship between self-perception of a learning disability and achievement, self-concept, and social support by Howard R. Rothman and Meredith Cosden, Learning Disability Quarterly, Volume 18, Summer 1995. Understanding your learning disability and how it limits you is critical to children not allowing their learning disability to define them. When children understood their disability and its impact, they were able to put in perspective and learn to work out around it. For me, personally, when I found out that I was plenty intelligent but just had a learning disability, I felt for the first time in my life that I was not stupid. With my learning disability defined, my teachers and parents were able to maximize my other skills to get around my reading disability. For example, I now listen to all my books while I read them. My auditory are quite good. My auditory is quite good, and this helps me to comprehend material better than just reading alone. If I hadn't been diagnosed, I seriously doubt I'd be in college today. Last peer reviewed question. Do you believe self-esteem can lead to consumption of drugs and alcohol? According to Vaughn, LaGreca, Cutler, in their journal article titled The Why, Who, and How of Social Skills, published in Professional Issues and Learning Disabilities, if untreated, low self-esteem can lead to involvement with drugs and school dropout and affect the general well-being of children. Um, Next question. Now these are not peer reviewed. Is interpersonal communication a struggle for you? I don't believe it's a struggle for me at all. I'm able to talk to myself really well. Most of these questions do not have a name on them of who I'm addressing it to and who asked me, so sorry about that. Next question is, what's the best way to communicate with a child who has a learning disability? Um, Obviously, don't tell them right away that they have a learning disability and that's what you think, but talk to their parents and have their parents get them diagnosed and have their parents explain to them what's wrong. And then if you understand what learning disabilities are, then just remind them that they aren't dumb and it's just something different and unique about them. And that was actually two questions from two different people. Crap. Alright, the next question is, how can self-awareness of a learning disability help someone overcome that disability? Knowing that you have a learning disability really helps you conceptualize the fact that there's a reason why school's harder for you than others and why you have to put in double the hours that most people do just to get the average work done. Knowing that you have your disability and that that's the reason why helps out a lot, so that you aren't just sitting there wondering why I'm studying and studying and studying and studying and studying, but yet I get lower test scores than all of my friends who study on average at least half of the time. So it's just helpful to know. Next question. Were you usually having a hard time doing / learning? Like I mentioned before, my learning disability is having a low processing speed and reading deficits, resulting in the basic routine of reading combined with more complex information processing, such as reasoning, to be difficult. So essentially, I cannot comprehend things while they're being said to me. So say if there's something on the board and I'm trying to write down what is on the PowerPoint on the board, I can write that down in my notes. But if the teacher is talking at the same time, I cannot hear anything that the teacher is saying or be able to take that information in at the same time. Next question. How has your research helped you communicate interpersonally better? Given your own learning disability. I don't really think it's helped me that much communicate better because I feel like I already, before my research, had a good handle on my interpersonal communication self. But besides that, I don't know. I don't think it's really changed much about it for me. Jenny asked, do you agree with the research that you have found? Why or why not? I do agree with the research that I found with how knowing about your learning disability helps you, and how Vaughn, LaGreca, and Cutler in their journal article titled "The Why, Who, and How Social Skills" talked about how untreated low self-esteem can lead to involvement with drugs and school dropout. I also think that that's not fully true because I feel like low self-esteem and how someone handles it is personally their choice, and I feel like everyone can probably get themselves out of their lowest self-esteem place if they look for help, but I guess that's more given person to person. William Fox asked, what learning disability do you have and how has that affected interpersonal communications in your life? Learning disability is not being able to process, high reading speed deficit, and yeah, I have really bad comprehension essentially, and I don't think it's affected my interpersonal communications. I think that I have a good handle on that. Next question. Can learning disabilities ever be completely cured or overcome? I don't think cured is quite the word because I don't look at it as a disease. Overcome, yes, most definitely, as someone to look at as yourself. You have a learning disability and yet you teach multiple classes at multiple colleges and you own your own business. So clearly, learning disabilities can be overcome as long as you know how to handle them and treat them properly. Next question was, how are you able to overcome your learning disability? I was able to overcome it by getting diagnosed and talking it through with my parents and truly being able to understand the fact that I was not dumb and that it is a disability and that many people around the world have learning disabilities like I do, and it doesn't end up affecting them long term in their life like one would assume it would. So I was able to overcome it by just reading and finding out the facts about it and how I could better handle the situation for myself. Next question. Did you learn something about yourself that you did not know before your research? No, not necessarily. That's kind of the reason why I did the research was because obviously my topic was interpersonal communications, and I had to find something inside of that that interests me. And I found an article that was on learning disabilities, so I thought that'd be really cool to see how, for other people, how interpersonal communications affects them. And it was cool to learn about, but I did not learn anything different about myself from my research. Tatiana asked, when is it a good time to tell the child that they have a disability? If you're someone who is working with children and you can tell something is off, but the child is definitely smart and has all of their wits there. But when they try to do certain activities or parts of school that do not make, or that don't add up in their brain, and they get frustrated with it, I'd say that's not necessarily a time to tell the child that they have a learning disability. Just don't walk straight up to them and say, hey, I think you got a learning disability. But instead, contact their parents and have a discussion with them and explain, what your prior past is with um, understanding learning disabilities and what you've seen, and explain that their child isn't dumb, and that you think that they might just need help with whatever they're going through, and that you think that you should take them to someone to have them run some tests and see what it turns out as. James, aka Jack. Oh, that's someone called me. So this is not from anyone. This is for me. How are learning disabilities discovered? They're discovered through tests such as the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, 4th edition, or the Woodcock-Johnson 3 Test of Achievement. There's multiple more out there that educational psychologists use to diagnose your issues. I believe educational psychologist is a well-known job for people around the world, so I don't think it'd be too difficult for you to find someone to be able to identify your child with whatever kind of learning disability they may have. The next question says, how do you think your topic affects you in your life? So how do I think interpersonal communication affects me in my life? Again, I don't think it really has much effect on me. I think I can talk to myself pretty well, and that it's not much of an issue for me. I think that's the last question. I did not have very many, but I might have one more over here. Okay, last question. Are there any learning disabilities that impact the use of interpersonal communication more than others? I don't know about all of the other learning disabilities. I did not ever research that far into learning disabilities. When I found out that I had one, I was more just interested in my own and how I could better myself with my own, rather than knowing about all the other kinds that I could have. So if I don't really know about any other learning disabilities that impact the use of interpersonal communications more than others. Uh, but I think that learning disabilities in general can cause an impact in the use of interpersonal communications. Just again, it varies person to person. So that is all of my questions. I will post this to YouTube and send it on over to you. Thanks.